The succession contest is shaping up to be the most interesting and unpredictable arc in Hunter x Hunter so far. The plot is taking place aboard the Black Whale, a cruise ship that's headed towards the Dark Continent, where I suspect things will get even crazier if you can imagine. And while the central focus is on the 14 Princes of Kakin, I can't wait to see how the secondary plot lines weave their way into the main story, because they'll be just as interesting to see unfold. Namely, discovering whatever Beyond Netero is planning before they reach the shore of the Dark Continent, more interactions between the Phantom Troop and Hisoka, who are all out for blood, and the eventual clash between Kurapika and Prince Tserriednich. As I said in my last video, it seems like Togashi is building up Tserriednich to be the main antagonist of this arc, and placing him on a fast track to facing Kurapika. Now this is interesting for multiple reasons. One, Tserriednich is a sociopath, who has a collection of body parts including many of the remaining scarlet eyes of the Kurta clan that Kurapika is searching for. And potentially, the head we see behind him in this picture is his childhood friend Pyro. Now, if you thought Kurapika was on one during the York New City arc, when he first encountered the Phantom Troop, he's really gonna go crazy this time around. And honestly, you may need a bit of crazy to go up against Tserriednich's crazy. And when these two eventually clash, it's going to make Kurapika's fight with Uvogin look like child's play. That's because both Tserriednich and Kurapika, under certain circumstances, are both specialists. Extremely talented nen geniuses that push the limits of the power system and do things we've never even imagined. Kurapika, just months after learning nen, managed to take down a Phantom Troop member and even capture and suppress their leader. It's very likely that he's capable of even more now. As for Tserriednich, he is truly frightening, displaying a natural aptitude for nen that surpasses just about everyone we've seen so far. A battle between two specialists of their caliber could easily shape up to be the greatest fight in Hunter x Hunter history. But what if I told you that this could just be the tip of the iceberg? What if a third specialist came into the mix, a specialist with personal ties to Kurapika and potentially even Tserriednich? Chrollo is the wild card here because his actions could change everything about the events that will transpire on the Black Whale. On one hand, he's searching for a nen ability that will allow him to take down Hisoka once and for all, and some have theorized that it may be one of Kurapika's various nen abilities. Perhaps the two, despite hating each other, can have a transactional exchange, with Chrollo borrowing Kurapika's technique in exchange for helping him take on Tserriednich. This is where the narrative becomes very important, because I can't see these two teaming up unless they have no other options available. The Phantom Troop is directly responsible for the massacre of Kurapika's entire clan, and Kurapika is responsible for the deaths of multiple Phantom Troop members at this point. There's no guarantee the Phantom Troop won't just attack Kurapika on sight now that the judgment chain has been lifted from around Chrollo's heart. But what if, for some reason, Chrollo gave the order to leave the chain user unharmed? What if he knows something that could change everything? Chrollo is such a fascinating, complex, and layered character. Getting his backstory on how he became the cold-hearted leader of the Phantom Troop following the death of his childhood friend Sarasa was incredibly insightful and gave us a much better understanding of his motivations. It's because of this that we may be able to understand what's going on in his head. Following the deaths of yet more troop members, Kortopi and Shaunark at the hands of Hisoka, Chrollo is in an extremely dark place. He wants to kill Hisoka above all else, but I imagine he is going through a profound spiritual change as well. Many of us have theorized that the journey ends on the Black Whale for many of the Phantom Troop members, and we know Chrollo hardly cares if he lives or dies so long as the spider survives. And as he faces his inner conflict, we may find that in his final moments, he's seeking more than just revenge, but redemption. As the sins of the Phantom Troop continue to come home to roost, I believe Chrollo may revert back to the kind childhood boy he was before his innocence was stolen, and as their leader, choose to carry the weight of all their sins by himself and his death. That will be an incredible ending to his character arc, and one that may ultimately provide Chrollo with meaning, reclaiming his identity after years of being lost without one, and after having his own character challenged by Gon himself, can die with a smile, knowing he found himself again in his final moments. And in terms of how Chrollo could be connected personally to Kurapika and Tserriednich's inevitable battle, it's entirely possible that Tserriednich hired the Phantom Troop to massacre the Kurta clan and steal their eyes. And because of this, Chrollo would feel compelled to help Kurapika get them back. The two really are perfect foils of one another. Having lost their innocence at a young age, being driven to the dark side by revenge, the only difference is Kurapika still has time before he goes too deep into the abyss. And I believe Chrollo will become somewhat of a cautionary tale for him after he dies, an example of everything he doesn't want to become. There's also the possibility that Tserriednich could be somehow involved in the death of Sarasa, Chrollo's childhood friend and the impetus for the formation of the Phantom Troop. And if that were the case, Chrollo would be fighting for more than just redemption or power. He'd also be doing it for justice or revenge. Honestly, I have no idea which direction Togashi is planning to take these three characters in, but it's fascinating to explore all the narrative paths he can take, and almost all of them are very interesting. We also need to talk about how crazy a fight between three highly versatile and talented specialists could be. It would be like watching an extremely volatile Nen chess match where nobody is following the rules, or rather, everyone is breaking the rules. We're going to see strategies, combinations, and Nen applications that could really blow our minds, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Tserriednich continues to grow in power at a frightening pace, and it's entirely possible that his power will match or eclipse them in due time, meaning that a temporary alliance could be the only way to take him down. But Chrollo and Kurapika are geniuses in their own right, and I have no doubt that they could come up with some sort of brilliant strategy to take the win here, although it will be extreme difficulty. There's also the possibility that members of the Phantom Troop get involved in this battle after they hear Tserriednich could have been involved with Sarasa's death, and that could result in other members of the Spider dying as well. I personally would love to see Finks, Phaeton, Nobunaga, and all the original members of the troop who knew Sarasa personally going up against Tserriednich and his Nen beast, and since many of them seem fated to die aboard the Black Whale, I can see many of them dying trying to avenge their friend. Now that would be a great way to go out for the Phantom Troop. What happens after this fight would also be interesting, because Hisoka could be waiting for Chrollo afterward, eager and horny for a rematch, and quite possibly on a high after killing yet another Phantom Troop member or two. This rematch would be very different from the first, as Hisoka is reborn as a Nen zombie with even greater insatiable bloodlust and no code he feels compelled to follow anymore. I don't think this Hisoka would care that Chrollo is tired from his fight. He'd probably be tired as well after fighting the troop members. And Chrollo as well, having been reborn as a freer version of himself, someone who has a better understanding of who he is may be ready to face death as always with no hesitation. But this time also with no regrets. Honestly, I have no idea how a rematch between these two would go, but I can't imagine Hisoka losing again, especially since he would have so much more to do in the story as compared with Chrollo at this point. At worst, I can see this being a draw, and at best, a Hisoka victory, perhaps a narrow one. But yeah, those are just a few theories on how the Succession Contest arc will unfold for these characters. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think Chrollo will team up with Kurapika to take down Tserriednich? How do you think that interaction would even go, and do you think they could beat him? What Phantom Troop members do you think Hisoka could target during this time, and do you think they'll get involved in the fight against Tserriednich? Also, who would win in a rematch between Chrollo and Hisoka? Leave your comments down below, and as always, thanks for watching.